this question of the name doesn't bring us any further. Yeah, we
No.
had this discussion started, I don't know, 70, 80, 90 years ago, and
Yeah.
it didn't help us at all, and it will not bring us any further. So I think it's from my perspective, it's a fact that we have these different names, and the names will stay.
My
Yeah, the
personal
names will
perspective.
stay. So
Yeah.
we think as Kano, let's say we think, let's keep this name issue for later.
Yeah.
Yeah, uh, we have we have to distinguish what is important and what is urgent. The name issue is 100% important, but is it really urgent? The past has shown it's not urgent. We still didn't solve it, but we still live. So let's
Yeah.
concentrate what is urgent and important, like preserving our language or helping our people in the homeland or organizing ourselves in the diaspora,
Yeah.
etc., etc., etc. A lot of things which are urgent and important. Let's
Yeah.
concentrate on these points. And of course, the name issue is important, and everybody who is discussing that, it's fine, but it shouldn't be a hurdle. It shouldn't be in our way of working together. It
Yeah.
shouldn't. And always, if we have, I don't know, our different organizations, if they have meetings with each other, let's say best example was the Mor Gabriel issue in
Yeah.
2009,
Yeah.
2008, 2009, where they were forced to work together, or even let's say in Iraq after the invasion. The organization were forced, because from outside force they were forced to at least to have meetings together. If they,
Yeah.
the first thing they say, let's solve the name issue and then we will do the next step. It
No.
never worked. Never worked. Yeah.
Yeah.
Put the most difficult issue on the table, solve it, and then we will work. It's not working.
Yeah.
Let's keep it for later. Yeah. Let's
I
accept each
absolutely
other
agree.
as we are. If you say Syriac, and I grew up, let's say I grew up really, it's not, let's say I grew up as Aramean, using always the term Aramean, always.
Mhm. Yeah.
But if you say Syriac, I understand Aramean. Even if you would say Chaldean, for me, it's Aramean. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't mind. I think we have to learn that. And at Kano, we say everybody can say whatever he wants.
Yeah.
It is important that in our mind, we include the others as well. That's
Yeah.
important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. I agree with you 100%. My personal preference for the word Syriac is only it's not at the exclusion of the other names. My preference for the word Syriac is only because in our language, Suryoyo, Suraya, it's the common denominator. But one thing I really like is I recently saw an old interview from several years ago between Yosef Bitluro, and if you recognize the name of a gentleman, his name is Denho Ghatas Makhtas Ilyas. He was
Yeah.
also a student of the orphanage in Adana, by the way.
Yeah.
He was a great poet. He shared his perspective on the name issue, which really I love, and it resonates with me very strongly. His perspective is all of our the past kingdoms and nations and peoples that we come from, all the names are the roots of our tree. We are the tree of Suryoyutho, but the
Yeah.
tree of Suryoyutho has many roots. And if you cut one root, the tree will die. But it's that tree that creates us who we are today. But I can't discount any of our past names because that's what makes us who we are. So I find that perspective very important, very unifying and inclusive. So that's what I hope to build on.
I agree, and sometimes I think, even if I would not agree, even if you would say we are different people, yeah,
Yeah,
different, we are not from Rantu, even if you would say that just for the sake of argument, it
yeah,
would be smart to work together.
of course,
Even,
of
yeah, it would
course,
be smart, even if we Syrian Orthodox, and the Assyrian and the members of the Assyrian Church of the East, even if we are totally distinct nations, it would be smart to work together, because we are stuck in the same situation. We have the same destiny if we don't work together. So even if we are not one, it would be smart to unify. Yeah. So sometimes I really don't get the urgency of talking about this issue, because the urgency is elsewhere. That's
Yeah.
my perspective. The urgency is
I,
elsewhere. We have to organize ourselves. We have to be organized in the diaspora, and we have
Mhm.
to support our people in the homeland. We have to preserve our language. We have to not only preserve, we have to develop and establish much more. We have to develop our
Yeah.
language skills. Like, I think pretty good Syriac. I know it, but do I know it as I know German?
Mhm.
Because I grew up in Germany. No, I don't.
Right.
Yeah.
No.
Even English. English is my third language. I would say, at least in written form, my English is much better than my Syriac or my Syriac.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and even I was a student in a monastery for 2.5 years. Even
Mhm.
then, I would still say English, which is my third language,
Yeah.
is much better in written
Mhm.
form than Syriac.
Yeah. One thing I'm very thankful for are TVs, Suroyo TV,
Yeah,
Suryoyo Sat, Assyria TV, all the TVs. Because when you go to various places in Europe, various parts of the United States, people speak Syriac just a little bit differently. If they come from
yeah,
Qamishlik, if they come from Tor Abdin, if they come from Beirut, they'll put different words in, loan words, maybe
yeah,
Turkish loan words, Kurdish, Arabic loan words. Suroyo TV and Suryoyo Sad and all of our TV,
yeah,
they've standardized it. So people ask me, where did I learn Syriac? Before the age of 18, I didn't speak Syriac besides Shlomo and Todi and Barakhmor before the
okay,
age of 18.
yeah,
Once I became 18, I threw myself, fiercely into learning Syriac. But where did I learn from? I learned from three main places. One is family, um, father, grandparents. That provided the basis, the
yeah,
foundation. But their Syriac is not developed in the sense that they use a lot of Arabic loan words, which is fine. I mean, that's
yeah,
how
klar,
their
for
language is
sure.
preserved. But
Yeah,
where I really learned to develop my language, my Syriac, was from music, Syriac music,
yeah,
and Syriac television. It's these two places for me. I mean, this is my personal story that served me the biggest, or served me the most in learning Syriac, and for that I'm eternally grateful and indebted to our musicians, our singers,
yeah,
Habib Musa, Nini Blahdo, these guys, the old school guys.
yeah.
We'll get into that discussion later. How the old school is better. No, that's just my personal. That's controversial,
It's
but
fine.
also to TV.
Controversial is good.
Yes. Also the TV.
Yeah,
So for this is very important. But you were mentioning before, I want to just go back about the identity issue, the name issue. I find that the name issue is a big issue in Europe, in Sweden, Germany, Netherlands. In the United States, that the name issue, Syriac, Assyrian, Aramean, is not really a very controversial issue as it is in Europe. Here in the United States, we have a slightly different issue with regard to identity, and that is the inclination or the willingness to call yourself Syriac, or whatever your
yeah.
chosen nomenclature is, versus the country from which your parents come.
Ah,
For
okay.
example, we have many Syriacs in the United States who, if asked by an American or at school, at work, what are you, they would say Iraqi, Lebanese, Jordanian, Turkish. This is a problem. This is a big problem. I don't think you have this problem quite as much in Europe, but we do in the United States. So for me, it's now. Of course, we can't deny where our family comes from. My family was 50 years in Lebanon, from 1922 to 1972. 50 years in Lebanon. So my father was raised in Lebanon. He became a man in Lebanon. He was educated in Lebanon. Lebanon served us. It protected us. It gave us freedom of religion and opportunity. And for that, we're eternally grateful. But that doesn't change who we are, because here my family has been in the United States, my father's side for 52 years now, my
Yeah,
mother's side for over 100 years. When asked, my citizenship, the country of my birth, the country where I served, of course, I'm American. But if I'm asked, who am I? What's my ethnicity? What's my background? Of course, I'm going to say, who I am, not the country I live in or the country of origin. So for me, it's a very important distinction of ethnic background, um, whether it's national background or country of citizenship. In the United States, that's a big deal. One thing that our church and our social organizations have been doing a very good job of here in the United States is using the word suryoyo quite frequently. Suryoyo youth, Suryoyo women's group, Suryoyo camp. There's a Suryoyo camp in New Jersey, um, and things of that sort. Suryoyo
Mm,
family gathering, which is great. It's better than using the name of the country of where your parents come from.
yeah,
But for me, it's important to find a name that translates into a Western language. Because when I go to school, when I go to work, a young 12-year-old boy, 12-year-old girl is not going to say, if they say, well, what are you? Who are you? They're not going to say Suryoyo, right? They feel embarrassed. They feel shy. So we need to come up with some kind of name for them to say that can correctly and accurately identify and reflect who they are. Um, but that's as you said, that's a
yeah.
discussion from another day. But that's just to give you an idea. That's the challenge facing us in the United States
Yeah.
versus the challenge that you're experiencing in Europe.
I agree, but actually we see that also in Europe, that
Mm,
especially from Syriac people from Arab speaking countries, let's say,
yeah,
that they sometimes identify with the country they're from, like Syria, Iraq, Lebanon. We don't have, I don't know actually a lot of people coming from Palestine or so-called Palestine. Yeah, it's officially it's Israel
yeah,
or Palestine region. We don't have that many from that area, but Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, you see sometimes that they identify as Syrians or as Lebanese, etc. We have that
mhm,
also here, but maybe not at the extent as you have, because like majority of Syriac people here in Europe are from Tur Abdin, and the Syriac from Tur Abdin, they don't identify as Turks. You
yeah,
don't see that. Very rarely you see somebody identifying himself as Turk.
yeah,
Maybe some who were like for more than 100 years in Istanbul or something,
yeah,
but you don't see that a lot.
yeah,
This is more a phenomena in the Arab speaking countries.
yeah.
Yeah, this is at least my observation.
I don't find I don't judge people. I don't
No.
find any moral I don't cast moral judgment on those who do this. For me, it's a question of what's best for us, what's accurate for us, what's an accurate representation of history, and also let's not forget those of our people who come from Arab countries were treated a little bit better in many cases, not all cases, but those in Lebanon, those in Syria, those in Iraq, they were able to maintain their faith. They were able to maintain dignity and their safety and security for the most part. So there's that dimension also to understand. One thing, as executive director of In Defense of Christians, I've sort of made it an unofficial policy that we will not say, like if we're talking to members of Congress, lawmakers, policymakers, we will not say uh, Iraqi Christian,
Yeah.
Turkish Christian. Um, we will not say that because these Christians in Iraq existed before Iraq itself existed.
Of
So how can
course.
you say Iraqi Christians? They were there
Before
before
the
Iraq was a state. So it's the unofficial policy that I've kind of been using for IDC is we say the Christians of Iraq, the Christians of Syria, the Christians of Turkey, rather than Turkish Christians or Iraqi Christians, because that's just an inaccurate reflection of who they are.